Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Mother-in-Law in Trunk. This is a place where we're going to talk about families, the good, the messy, the complicated. We're going to dig into things like generational trauma, healing, and the ways our health, our mind, bodies, and spirits all intertwine with the people closest to us. Sometimes this means opening up old closets and laying skeletons to rest, and sometimes it means sharing new stories, but always it comes with the hope of letting go of what weighs us down. My name is Jerry. I'm a layman, skeptic, and all-around inquisitive guy. I'm joined here by Dr. Reagan Tilley, functional medicine doctor, exploring the intersections of the mind, body, and spirit in her work as a medical practitioner. And by Autumn, who brings a fascinating blend of Buddhist-based contemplative psychotherapy and a real passion for hypnotherapy that leans into the spiritual side of things. And so passing it on to Autumn and Reagan to start off, could you introduce the sort of mother-in-law in trunk name that you came up with? Just a really brief introduction since we're just early episodes, and then we'll roll into the rest.
Yeah, of course. Mother-in-law in trunk is something that came about after I was gifted a bumper sticker with mother-in-law in trunk, and it really sparked this idea in me of working with the archetype of mother-in-law in podcast form. And I've been looking for that people to do it with for almost a decade. I think that it all comes from generational female trauma. I mean, I know those words get tossed around a lot, but for a reason. And I think they're really up for people to look at. But yeah, I'm interested in exploring, your mother-in-law in your trunk. What is your perhaps feminized version of skeleton in the closet? What are you looking to work with? How is your mother-in-law showing up in your life actually, but even figuratively, what are you working with? So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So Autumn and I, we got together after decades pretty much apart.
Right.
We're cousins, so we grew up together kind of with the once or twice a year visits to each other's family. And we have really doubled down on the efforts to stay connected over the last few years. And it's been a huge blessing.
Definitely.
So on one of our little sojourns together where we were just getting away and reconnecting, Autumn brought this up. And I thought, hey, this is an amazing opportunity for us to both kind of stretch our comfort zones, talk. And we realize when we are together, we can have some fantastic conversations.
100%. Absolutely.
And so
yeah,
I wanted to support Autumn in this endeavor because she was very excited about the possibility of being able to talk about this, because it's a huge thing. Not everybody gets to have a mother-in-law. And I would hazard maybe half of the mother-in-law experiences is great and the other half is less than stellar. And that's, there's the gradation and the spectrum of wonderful there.
Right.
And so we both kind of have had some experiences that weren't phenomenal. I've been really blessed to have some experience with a really great mother-in-law. And I actually became a mother-in-law a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Rewriting things. I mean, I think that's the blessing and that's the opportunity, and when we were discussing earlier in the week about how this recording should unfold, it really opened up, which is what we hope, right? When we're sharing and being vulnerable, that it can be an opportunity to open up a door for somebody else possibly. And they're going to have their aha moments and then their transformations and their healings. And, talking about how I got to this place. And it really became a bigger conversation with myself this morning about, it started a lot earlier than 20 years ago when I gained a mother-in-law. What was it in my life, in my patterning, and the way that I do things that, and this is also interesting, allowed her energy to step forward the way it did in such a toxic way. And so then it got me thinking about my own mom, my grandma's, and I'm still sincerely unclear with how they have played into it, but I know that it all has, because that's the way it works. And so Yeah, just there's a lot going on in my own mind, and I love how this is the beginnings. This is the beginnings, and I'm at the beginning. I don't have really anything figured out around this topic, and hopefully, as we gain an audience and they're working through their stuff, anticipating some of their healing moments, I'm right there with you. you know, I mean, I'm not the expert on this. I'm feeling wounded by it, and I hope this will be cathartic for us all. you know so mm. Reagan, you're muted.
It's because the doggy. Yeah. Sorry.
Are you blaming it on the dog?
Yes, Jerry knew it. She was barking at my guest. So Josie did come in. So my daughter-in-law did arrive. She wanted to hear what we were doing.
Love
so
it. Hi, Josie.
There she is. Yeah. Have a seat.
Is that okay?
Yep.
I just didn't want to interrupt.
No, you're good. And so, that when we're young, and I don't know what I was thinking, Jerry, I don't know if you ever, as a younger man, and I know you've said you're not married, but someday you might be. You never know. But do men think, hey, it'd be great if I got a great mother-in-law or father-in-law? Does the thought ever cross your mind?
It will now.
It will now, yeah. When we're young, and especially if we kind of have a little dysfunction in our home, I think sometimes the dream is that when we get married, we're going to have a better parent than we had, or at least one that's kind or as good as what we have, so we don't have to deal with hardship. And so I know that was one of those things that I would have loved to have a really great mother figure. And honestly, in my past marriage, I had one great mother-in-law, which was the stepmother-in-law, and the mother-in-law that was
in trunk.
Yes, in the trunk, we'll say. So I kind of lucked out. I actually married my ex-husband half for his dad and stepmom, like half for his parents is why I married him. Very weird, but true. And now, since I'm divorced and remarried, my new mother-in-law is like sweet as pie. She's just the sweetest thing ever. Like, she needs a halo. She's just so good. Leaves me alone, but is there if you need her. It's one of those kind of like good things. And so, but it really speaks to that point of thinking on it. How are you trained to be a mother-in-law? Right? Mm-hmm. It's by your experiences. You can either do as I do or do as I say kind of a thing, or realize all of the things that aren't great and then try to do it different.
Right.
So, like you said, Autumn, you're at the beginning. So this is that opportunity, right? How can I do better? How can I do better?
Right. Well, yes, 100%. It's a conversation that it's interesting because you ask Jerry, do you as a young man, do you think about this? When you're thinking about family, extended family, marrying. I mean, my kids consciously think about this. They're 13 and 16, and we have been talking about this for years. You could have the love of your life and truly perhaps weigh the pros and the cons of who their parents are and what you're going to be marrying into and what kind of family you're going to be attempting to bridge. Because luckily I am in a really strong marriage, and if it weren't, we would no longer be together. It's impactful, and I think we were kind of talking about the same things we did last week, but yeah, I said that last week, but it's very true, and it's something that's really pretty conscious in our home, about now that the kids are getting older and Sloan and dating, and it's like, you want healthy relationships, Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, right? Because my answer would be no. I don't think about it. I don't even think about it now. Mm-hmm. I think that because I've had bad experiences in the past, I am very comfortable cutting people out. Mm-hmm. And so I actually would lose zero sleep over marrying a partner and literally never talking to their parents and never seeing them for a holiday. And I would just literally it would never cause me strife or stress. They can decide if they deserve to be in our lives or not. And I would never think about it. I wouldn't. I don't even think I'd bring it up to my therapist. I think I'd just be like, okay, bye. You know.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but I wonder if, I grew up obviously as a biological male and a cisgendered male, right? I am a man, and separate topic, but obviously other people have more of a what's it, spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting to hear how impactful and how important it is to both of you. Both just incredibly educated and empathetic and
No, I don't
because
think
if
I
they're
really
not
did either.
until it happened,
Yes.
until it was there with you.
I think so. I mean, I think I just assume that why wouldn't it be okay? Even if it's just okay,
Hmm.
like why wouldn't it be? And
Right.
so I mean, I don't these.
Oh, and
Yeah, yeah.
I assume it would be bad, right? Because I grew up as a gay man in the '90s,
Hmm.
right? So my assumption was that we would be estranged from our parents. My assumption in my adolescence was we would not have a healthy family dynamic, and that likely one or both of us would be estranged because of our relationship, right?
Right.
That's the environment I grew up in. So I guess for me, I don't even care if it's okay or not. I've already kind of grieved for whatever that might
Well,
have
that
looked
makes a
like.
lot of sense now. Okay, I'm getting it. I'm getting it. Yeah, I mean, it's a whole different vantage point, right? I mean, we all have these different battle wounds, right? And they play out differently for how maybe we're going to accept or not, or deal with the things that step in front of us. Yeah, I hear
Yeah.
you.
And I do think it's a lot different in how you're raised as far as the expectations, and we touched on that I think last time. Is
Hmm.
as young women, we're basically raised to
Hmm.
partner up at some point and become mothers. And if both of us, like you said, we're both educated professional women at different phases of life. My kids are adults, and Autumn's are still at home. I have the 11 and a half year old at home still, but the expectations are different, and you have to make that break. I tried to stay with the convention of what the women in my family said when I was early on. You can be a teacher, a nurse, or a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to be a doctor. I had a full ride to art school. I didn't have, I think the sky was the limit, and I had to pick one, and I picked nursing because it was the safe answer to not
Hmm.
piss off the women in my family.
Hmm.
And then
Interesting.
it turned into first day of nursing hygiene class where they taught us how to fold a washcloth around our hands so we could give a bed bath. I'm like, yeah, this is not it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need to be taught how to put a washcloth on my hand and not to wash the butt before the face. It apparently needs to be taught.
Apparently it does, and it does.
So
And so you were not in the right school,
I wasn't,
right
but
track. Yeah.
I am of the opinion I'd finish it off, see where it goes from there, right? And
Yes.
so I did eventually go to medical school and become a doctor. And I do feel like that was like divine timing. I wasn't mentally ready. And so what I really needed was to get some more lessons under my belt, if you will,
Yeah.
life experience and all of that. So that's kind of where, my trajectory put me. So
Yeah.
I think, a question I have for you, Autumn, is what was it? Was this impactful in your decision to go down the path that you have for your education, your learning, and your psychotherapy practice? Did this impact it at all?
I don't think initially it did. I mean, I really don't. I didn't ever feel growing up that I had any limitations on what maybe I could or could not be. What I wanted to be was a parapsychologist. And that was, I graduated from high school in 97. So all through the 90s, I'm trying to have these conversations about how you become a parapsychologist. And gosh, I mean, there's regret in that for me, quite honestly, because wow, if I had really held on to that before, it hit critical mass, I feel like I could have been in on something really cool from the ground. And that was where my passion lied, because I've had such a paranormal life. My norm, as uncomfortable as it could be, was always very paranormal. My daily happenings were like that, which kind of obviously led me. And it's like, that's the funny thing too. It's like, how did I even know as like a preteen teen what parapsychology was? Those are the things I think about, like, where did that even enter in? But anyway, um that seemed impossible, so I went into psychology. And interesting, whatever. And then I knew when a graduate school needed to offer more than a textbook. And so that's when the Buddhist contemplative track stepped forward. I had spent a couple months in India, and God, I don't know if I'd gotten home yet or not, but Zach said, you're going to hate this, because personally, I have never had an affinity for Boulder. He said, I found your school, and unfortunately, honey, it is in Boulder. And he did find my school, and it was Naropa. And that school was all about looking at yourself and your own insanity and going down your own rabbit holes and working from the ground up until you could pretend that you could work with other people. It was a phenomenal education to prime you and break you down, to even feel like you should try to hold space for other people, but we moved a lot. We started moving a lot with Zach's work, and the relicensure in other states really was spinning me out, having little kids and him traveling a lot, my own health issues. So I really stepped into hypnotherapy, because it was, again, pulling in the spiritual, the paranormal. It was pulling in all the realms, combining it with, obviously, therapy. And I started to see how fast track it could also be as a modality. So you also are cutting out some of that tendency towards codependence, even. Not that that's a therapeutic relationship, but I did also like that aspect of, I don't know, fast track work with people. Yeah, and that's just led into looking at other modalities and doing other trainings, all of which I hope will help with this podcast and these further revelations of working with this particular issue and archetype. But no, I definitely didn't study anything because of her, them. Yeah.
No, no.
Right. Hmm.
To sink her teeth. Thing that you talked about, Autumn, is you used the word paranormal earlier.
Yeah.
What do you think kind of, because you said it was pretty early in your adolescence, what do you think kind of pinballed you into that more spiritual sort of realm? Was it an experience? Was it a book? Was it just a conviction that you had? What kind of led you into that direction?
Yeah.
Versus maybe more of a hard science? Because I could see you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
so sorry. Because I could see you being like a really precocious, intellectual sort of child. That's how I imagine you. And so you totally could have become like.
Graham got some stories for you.
Bring out the magnifying glass, some leaves, and some ants. Autumn was all about it.
See? So you could have been a botanist, an ecologist, but like something kind of drove you in that direction. I'm kind of curious about that. What pinched you that way?
Thank you for asking. I love that, because, my earliest memories are of certain spirits that would visit. If we're really, there's nothing I can do but be honest. My whole childhood from the very beginning was very supernatural, very paranormal. It just was the way it was. And some of those earliest memories still impact me to this day. And they still bring up for me things I'm continuing to look at and to explore because I think they had deep relevance. Because I believe that, when you're a child, you're very open and things, you're still getting these maybe downloads that as we age, I think we all know this, you kind of start to like close off those certain parts of yourself. But, I think like you say, oh, you're becoming a therapist because you need to try to heal yourself. Okay, I can cop to that. I'm sure that's certainly a part of it. I was interested in parapsychology because I needed answers and I needed to normalize what had terrorized me, from as early as I can remember. And I will always deal with it. It's just part of my daily life. Um, yeah. So,
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I really love what you said at the end there, where you talked about, seeking answers.
right. Which I think
It can,
you hear parapsychologists or paranormal people say a lot. Like, why are you in this field? Because I was terrorized as a child and I had to figure it out. And I'd say that's still one of my main paths is trying to figure it out, how to make friends with it, essentially. Yeah.
I think, when you're young and you have these experiences and they're very like very real, that there's not that iffy or wishy-washy, maybe it was, or it's just your imagination.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like it sets you up. What do I want to say? Sets you up to need validation.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be people who are complete doubters. And, funnily enough, Autumn and her experiences, I think, were more what we would call, I don't know if tangible is the right experience or like right expression, but mine were more subconscious and more past life related. I would run into people when I was a child and I would say hi, like I knew them, and I did know them. And my mom would tell me I'm crazy, and the other person would look at me like, hi, little girl. But I'm like, you've given me candy before. Because, I remember going to a grocery store and she handed me one of those free lollipops that they used to give kids. I'm like, oh, thank you. You've given me candy before. And it was 100% a real transaction in that 10-second interaction that I'd experienced. Everybody calls these things deja vu, right? I feel like a lot of those deja vu moments or things that you've experienced are those little flashes into those nodal interactions of past lives, maybe, where you're getting that experience stacked or something. But so, we have very different experiences as children, but we both were very...
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
I think we both experienced some things that most people would say are a little odd.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the past life thing has also very much been a part of, hence why I'm so interested in it now. The past life showing up, those are some of my earliest memories, Yeah, I definitely understand. Yeah.
yeah, well, and it's interesting, Autumn, you were describing a lot of like external experiences, right? Things around you that you experienced. But then Reagan, you're describing more like internal experiences, right? I think that's interesting. You came to similar ways of viewing the world, but you sort of came to it from different angles. Right? Whereas Autumn, it seems like it was pressing in on you with those experiences, and Reagan, it sounded like it was pressing out of you. There was something in you that you had to make external, and Autumn, there was something external that you had to deal with. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty profound observation.
Yeah.
Yep. We've got kitten noise on my end. I apologize.
No problem. I don't want to drag us into it. Just wanted to see if we all saw the same thing. Cool.
All right.
Yeah, I think it is really interesting that you can come to the same. One, that you're related in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you had these sort of different experiences, but the path kind of led you together, even though they were different paths. You know,
Right.
Yeah. I think, would it be sacrilegious or sanctimonious or whatever the word is? We both kind of had suspicions about our grandma Morris. That's where we hung out. We loved hanging out at her house.
Yeah.
But when we would go over, she had incense burning, and there were all these little little trinkets and all of these little things. And she had her own stuff she was dealing with, but she was as sweet as could be. But we're like, I bet you she knew some stuff. And part of her coping mechanism could have been for any one of those reasons that we've shared, that she didn't have a tool or wasn't equipped or didn't know how to deal with it, honestly.
Yeah.
Certainly, like we are so very lucky to have the amount of knowledge and support we do today in the United States specifically.
Mm-hmm.
To deal with these mental health issues, these trauma issues, right? Mm-hmm. Because there are places in the world that people, they're not able to sort of proceed through the Maslow's hierarchy of needs to the point where they're worrying about this. They're still worrying about their psychological safety, their physical safety, intake of energy, like things like that. So it's really cool that we're in a generation, in a country, in a time that we can dig into those. I think that's really amazing, because I think you hit on a little bit, Reagan. You're right. Our parents and grandparents, and certainly below that, they had none of the tools. They didn't even have the mental models. Some of them might have been illiterate, like literally, not stupid, because that's different. But the idea that every child reads is a very modern idea, right? Like less than 100 years old modern. So even the idea that a child could read a book on spirituality, psychology, what have you, and go on a journey, that's like a new thing, and our generations of past families, they did not have the tools, the access. There was a lot of stigma. I think there's a lot of room to talk about that. I think, Greg, you kind of hit on that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, thinking about it, when you put it that way, Jerry, you really kind of just unraveled kind of a time. I'm lacking words on what it is, but you think about how long it's been since every child should read. Think about the shorter amount of time how every woman should do voting, have rights, be able to own a house, learn. Like, God forbid we were born 100 years ago. Like our access to what we need and where our minds are. So it really does speak to us being put in the time that we need to be in to expand. And I think that's a lot of what Autumn, probably you and I were talking about, is like being born now in this time. It's definitely our time to grow and shine.
Right. And I think it's interesting how Grandma Morris gets brought up, and we're talking about her incense, and, her house to me was always kind of a portal. Mm-hmm. And the comings and goings of energy and spirit there was always a thing. Mm-hmm. And certainly she didn't have the support or the voice, or it was just so abnormal to have that sort of gift or whatever, you would maybe call it a curse if you were her, whatever. I don't know. But, earlier when we were talking about this morning about the idea of mother-in-law as an entity or a trauma or whatever that looks like you got to look back further, right?
Right.
And so, so I am, you're bringing it up, and it's going back further, and it's looking at the grandmothers, like, what did they bring forth? Like, how did they, I mean, this is all obvious, but I think it's really great to consciously give it some attention and time. Like, what did they foster in you? Probably very unknowingly. Like, Grandma Morse obviously handed us some secret gifts that she would have had no idea she was, I mean, she was eccentric, and anything went. And there was a spiritual potency there that I think fostered all of that mystery, obviously, even more. And so you bring her forward, And like, I think that's important to remember that you have these warriors on your side, you know,
Right.
when you're feeling like you're stepping up against a mother-in-law or a woman figure that doesn't have your back and is adversarial and it's just difficult. You know, we also had those women that gave us a great deal.
Right.
So,
Well, I remember my mother making comments about how much she loved Grandma Morris. You know, my dad was the Morris, and my mother married into that family, and it was a stark contrast from her mother to Grandma Morris. And I think one of her biggest regrets when she and my dad got divorced was the not having that family connection, I guess, fully again. But Grandma Morris was always polite to her when she'd drop us off. I mean, so she was one of those ladies, if you know what I mean. She was a lady. She was a gentle woman who was open and accepting. She also knew what her limits were. Like my brother was a little bit of an energy drain, and she knew how much Jeremy she could take.
Yep.
But yeah, she was a gentle woman, but she had a strength. I 100% felt it. She was the matriarch of the family.
Yeah.
Even though she did suffer from a lot of anxiety, it was just, it was beautiful to see how her sons kind of like,
well, they cared for her. They truly love and adore her to this day.
Yeah.
And there was such a respect and reverence for her every second. I mean, I have never heard my dad speak ill of his mom. Not ever. No. Everything that maybe is not seen as perfect is seen in comedy and love and in light. You know, I mean, it's a whole different game. And I'm really pleased that is a family experience that we can have.
Right.
It hasn't always been the easiest family.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And go ahead.
No. It was like ellipsis. So
I have some thoughts around that and that I'd like to dig into. Yeah. One, Reagan, a moment ago, you mentioned how recent, sort of the recency of some of these developments. And you're right. So the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified in 1920, which allowed women to vote nationwide. It is 2025, so that's just over 100 years. 100 years is not that long.
Right.
Right? That is really crazy to think about. And even then, women weren't able to own certain types of property like bank accounts without having a husband until a 1974 law that outlawed gender discrimination. However, the great state of California allowed women, regardless of marital status, to open their own bank accounts as early as 1862.
That's why the women in my family fled to California when they left their family, most likely.
Gotta love Cali.
Right.
So that was interesting. Something, Autumn, you brought up, and I think it's really fascinating, this person in your life who you said has kind of this air of all these people loved her. What do you think is the compare and contrast between her personality and how she treated her family and these mother-in-laws who are sort of the ones you want to shove in the trunk?
Oh my God.
Is there any direct comparisons or anything there?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's easy. If I'm comparing my mother-in-law to our grandmother, but it's also complex. Like, to me, everything is dualistic. So it's simplistically very complex. You look at somebody like Grandma Morris and, again, dualistic. She had this way of her in her own anxiety to go with her own flow. Like she had bought into her own life and she didn't need drama to feed her. She found her own way, whether it be dysfunctional or not sometimes, to sustain herself. It wasn't by being a vampire. It wasn't by harming other people to feed off their pain. And when I look at these toxic mother-in-laws, I think that's the main thing that really raises its hand so strongly, is this air of like, I'm going to make you squirm. I'm going to make you hurt. I'm going to make you doubt yourself because
Yeah.
I need to feel something,
Yeah.
because I need a fix, because I need to know that I'm in control, and it's all a lie. I mean, this whole thing is such a lie, and I find it heartbreaking how common it is to really wreak havoc and even destroy family systems.
Yeah. Grandma Morris never had a negative word to say about anybody. I
Never.
don't think she could be baited into talking bad, no matter how much someone deserved.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't ever. She didn't. I mean, she didn't. But the thing about her is, she wasn't. She wasn't some weird pushover of a person. I
No.
mean, it was her. I mean,
Yeah.
there was the strength in this authenticity,
Right.
of her character.
Yeah. And I do have a stark contrast with my grandmother on my mom's side.
Mm.
They couldn't wait to get a jab in edgewise and talk badly about somebody. So even as a child, I could
Yeah.
see the contrast of how genteel Grandma Morris was, and then Grandma Dorothy was, talking dirt about everyone.
Interesting. Yeah, you really got that full education
Yeah.
in what it looks like to have these pillar of women and what it could look like. And my our grandma Morris was really one of her best friends was my other grandma,
Mm-hmm.
and they were very different characters, but they were like the odd couple, and it was really cool and it was really beautiful. And when you grow up with that luxury, you have no idea, it's not normal. And so I think even when I came into adulthood with some sense of the world a little bit more, I still didn't realize how big the possibility would be that wouldn't be my new family.
Right.
That people wouldn't be buddies and have just a congenial, even just respect for one another. That you would walk into a new situation and the line would have been drawn, and it would be, I am rejecting you and I do not like you. I mean, that's how it was 21 years ago. And it's never growing into something better,
Yeah, I think that pain is, I knew your other grandma as well, and I was
Mhm.
a little jealous that you had two fantastic grandmas.
They were great women. Thank you.
And, I was blessed, I guess to say I had three. I had a step grandmother as well with my grandfather on my mom's side, and Hope was a doll, but she and my grandfather fought. And so I didn't have peace growing up. And so my hope, I think, when I was looking for what my life could look like when I found my partner, was maybe some peace, maybe some acceptance, and maybe some unconditional,
Yes.
just respect, I guess.
Yes. Absolutely.
Getting that with Cheryl, my stepmother-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
she was open arms.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was welcome. She was the one that would invite the guy off the side of the highway to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other side of it was very, very stark contrast.
Yeah.
And so I think, like you say, you have an idea when you have grown in a place that's nurturing and welcoming that this is the way it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the contrast of this really wasn't the way it was at all. And you could only dream to have this little piece of joy. And, so that I think was my seeking. Like, it actually was part of my seeking.
Yeah. And I that makes absolute sense to me that you would have that awareness, Reagan, to be seeking that comfort and that unconditional love and respect. And, I think we have a lot of things we could get into with our families and growing up, and why we wouldn't have seen each other all of the time. Why, all these scenarios. And so it's not that I have rose-colored glasses per se about family or what it looks like. I mean, I really don't. But there's things that you haven't yet played out in your head, and when they happen, it does knock you off your ground a bit. Mm-hmm. And I think it's kind of a common occurrence. Even as you and I talk, it's like, yeah, this and this and this, and wow, really can throw you for a loop.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's that seeking, right? Reagan, you talked about seeking the same way Autumn earlier, you talked about seeking, right? You were seeking answers, make
Right.
it make sense, right? And Reagan, again, seeing some parallels, you did the same thing. You make it make sense, make these relationships make sense. That in that seeking, that's what led you here. And something, and this might end up being a longer, just well, this is going to be a multi-episode discussion. These people who are just so kind of vile and toxic, right? I wonder, coming from your different perspectives, Reagan, you as a doctor, and then Autumn, you from a more like Buddhist spiritual sort of hypnotherapy kind of perspective. Why do you think these people are so vile? Is it that they're unhealed? And they haven't gone on a journey to heal themselves. Hurt people. Is it a reflection of their biology, right? Were they malformed when they were young? They had their brain wired in a certain way because of some experiences, and so they just can't escape their biology, their physiology. Is it a spiritual thing? Is it a healing thing? I'm kind of curious, kind of digging into your expertises. Why do you think these people are such assholes compared to the people that are wonderful?
Like you said, this could be a multi-episode answer.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's not going to be one answer. Looking at siblings, even though
Right.
the same quote unquote same parents, we never have the same parents. Never, my brother and I don't have the same parent. My youngest half brother and I don't have the same parents. So biologically, we share parentage. I feel like this is an answer that is as nebulous as human design. Like there's so many contributions to the way each person is, and I think it has a lot to do with personal choice. There's choices we make even from little childhood up. The thing that fills the need that we have here is the way we're going to go, and whether that be through positive interaction or negative interaction, whatever fills the energy that we need is what we're going to continue with, and then we learn a path.
Yeah.
And so some people are able to change because they recognize that there's a maladaptive path and then there's a productive path. And I feel like it does take enlightenment. It does take a living outside of that root chakra base needs, the Maslow's hierarchy. You have to get out of that safety, security, stability in order to grow and mature in this. So it definitely depends on where you're at. But again, my brother and I, for instance, Jeremy and I have reconciled. There's been a lot of growing trauma with my brother and all of that. We did come from essentially the same background with different experiences based on how we interacted with the world.
Of course.
And so I describe myself as a very resilient person. I'm a swimmer, not a sinker. So other people, though, glom onto that victimhood. Like, poor me, look at me, see how hard I've had it. I'm going to stay in the broken state. And as far as I'm concerned, it's just making my skin thicker. I'm stronger. I'm more resilient. I have more knowledge and wisdom behind me through that awful experience so that I can move into the potential. For me, it's always to help other people. I know I have to help myself, but it's always, how can I use this to help the world? But everybody's different.
There's so much in that. I will be re-listening to that and taking some notes. There's a lot in that I really liked. Reagan, I liked the idea that we're gathering things that feed us in some way. I do think there's probably something biochemical, physiological, something maladaptive, maybe driving some of the behavior. And I do think that, kind of like cancer is a natural occurrence, maybe these sort of cancerous personalities are just a natural sort of malignant occurrence through a variety of things. I really enjoy that kind of biological kind of thought around it. I'd like to explore that more. But then Autumn going to more your like spirituality, hypnotherapy. Could these mother-in-laws would hypnotherapy help them a little bit to heal? Like, where do you think some of this malignancy, this vileness is coming from kind of that bent?
Yeah, again, basing it just off of my very little and personal experience, I'm looking at, and this could be offensive. I totally get it. I'm looking at generational stuff. So we're looking at the baby boomers. We're looking at how they were raised, how they were brought up, what's their emotional capacity and IQ, and what's their ability to apologize and to pony up and say, I'm sorry, and do the work. And so a lot of the times for me, it's come back to looking at it through that lens, because that's what's in front of my face right now, is looking at the differences, yeah, just even generationally, and what are the resources available. And again, like Reagan says, what's feeding you? What are you choosing to feed your soul with? It's like the badges we decide to wear and why. And I think that there's always been a little something in me that said, the badges can always be changed, and make sure you're changing them, and make sure you're taking them off completely and like wiping the slate clean. But what I witnessed in some of these like quintessential mother-in-law situations where it is really toxic and vile are these really old, worn out, painful badges that they, come hell or high water, are going to wear and project from that place, right? That place of victimhood, that place of martyrdom, those places of pain and hurt that I'm not sure they even know if they're real anymore. But it's that psychodrama has become such their storyline, mixed with possibly kind of a lower emotional IQ. That I'm not saying, and again, I'm not saying they're unintelligent people. I just emotionally, I think that what I have worked with and witnessed is it kind of bottomed out at a younger age, in that capacity to allow themselves to keep growing and expanding for whatever reason, I don't know, was sort of stalled out. So I think it would be very rare that one of those particular personality types would end up in a hypnotherapist seat.
Because they'll be resistant to it in the first
Oh,
place. That's an interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting perspective. I really can vibe with that. I can see where you're coming from. I had a thought, but I lost it. Reagan, do you have any thoughts while I gather mine?
Yeah, go ahead. To answer kind of that little, they wouldn't end up in Autumn's seat because they don't have enough self-awareness to recognize that there is something that needs to be fixed or healed. And some of the experience that I have is, as people come to me with physical illness, migraines, insomnia, belly issues, rashes, hormone issues, you name it. I have evidence of working with one of my smallest clients that an emotion was behind some of her skin issues when we did emotion clearing with her. And when we cleared her mother's emotional wound that was attached to the child, once we cleared that, she let out this giant sigh of relief. The little girl, 2.5-year-olds don't sigh. Like, they don't do that spontaneously. Some children will affect it, but it was spontaneous. Yeah. And then when I work with my older clients, what I find so often is the ones that are most resistant to healing, that need 50,000 lab tests done. They want to be on 20 bushels of supplements, and they're only eating sweet potatoes, rice, chicken, because they can't eat anything else. They are so stuck in a fight and flight limbic system terror.
Yeah.
But when we go to try to heal it, we find that we need to start healing that inner child, those wounds. And we go back generationally and in their decades to try to help heal each of those.
Yeah.
And that has been one of the most profound things that I've learned. I'm a doctor of osteopathic medicine. more than 50% of what I do with my practice is psychiatry or psychology. It's the psyche is the wound, and functional medicine says it all starts in the gut. Then the question comes to, why does it start in the gut? And I'll take it to emotions every day.
Right. And see, I think you've got such a brilliant in with all these people to do this work. I mean, um, because right, it manifests in the body. And so
Right.
there you need your doctor, you need that person to take a look at you and help you to feel better. And you're hoping it's an easy fix. I mean, we all are, let's be honest, right? But I mean, I will never see those people because nobody in that fight or flight state is usually going to say, I'm going to put myself in the hot seat. Because quite frankly, a modality like hypnotherapy, it's difficult. You're going to see things you don't want to see. I mean, that's the name of the game. You're in control, you know, but you let down that mask and that guard, and the things that need help with the most are going to step forward, and they are rarely pretty, you know? And so, yeah.
And you dug a little bit, Autumn, into like the narratives people tell themselves. And I think that that's a really powerful direction. And I know there's a couple really great books around that topic, around the stories we can tell ourselves around depression, around health, around trauma and healing. Is your story you're telling yourself one of resilience or one of victimhood and martyrdom, to your point?
Right.
Um, I think that's a brilliant direction, and then Reagan, you talked a little bit about like the combination of psychology and like physical health. Have you read the book Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers by Robert Sapolsky?
No, you told me about it, and I need to read it.
Because
I've got a long list of to read books.
I've given you a list.
Yep,
Yes.
yep. Uh-huh.
I'm actually quite proud. I really have a goal to, if a book's on my shelf, that I've read it, and I really truly have. I
Love
think
it. Yeah.
most of them. It is a brilliant book, and maybe that's something we dig into.
Yeah.
And one of the things he talks about a lot, just as a synopsis, is that our brains, consciousness kind of came later. The body came first as we evolved. And our brains don't really have a good differentiation between psychological stress and running from a lion stress,
Hmm.
because it really didn't evolve with two parts of our brain, but with one part of our brain, the stress part of our brain, and how that affects everything. And when you're stressed, when you're running from a lion, you don't need to digest. You don't need to create sperm and testosterone. You don't need to ovulate or get estrogen or have your endocrine system tuned up. All of these things shut themselves off under stress because your body thinks you're running for your life.
Right.
But in the modern world, it's because I had this experience when I was young. It's because I have anxiety about work, right?
Mm.
But our bodies are reacting in these really complex and kind of silly ways sometimes, right? Like it's killing a fly with a sledgehammer, but it doesn't know any better,
Yeah.
and that kind of intersection, I think, is where you just have a lot of brilliance and experience there.
Mm.
So just on both of your points, I think just a lot of real cool intersections there. Autumn, with the narratives and these people being resistant, right? They're like therapy resistant, like antibiotic resistance, but for trauma. And Reagan, just this intersection of these familiar relationships and how it damages us,
Hmm.
physically.
Yeah. Well, the story that you had about why zebras don't get ulcers, it's the story I tell about the deer in the meadow. The only time they care is when they hear the gunshot or the coyotes running.
Hmm.
Beyond that, they're just like, okay, it's time to eat. I'm going to lay down, chill out, let my heart come back to normal, and okay, things are cool. We don't really see nervous deer.
Well, we just don't. I mean, we just do not live those lives, do
No,
we? I mean,
no.
I would personally go back to the way it was in the 80s and 90s. I would, with absolutely no thought, because I can see and feel how I'm never fully resting anymore.
Ever.
Always rev to some extent. I I find it very uncomfortable. And I would
Yeah.
to,
As
be
we
a
were
dear
talking about earlier, we all have a whole bunch of work to do.
like it never stops.
Right.
Yeah.
Ever.
So
And that's a topic.
you know, but just one more thing on that topic of clients and who we see and who we don't see, and will the proverbial mother-in-law cross that threshold for help? I also think, and I am no expert in this field at all, but personality disorders. And I think broadly, and from very little knowing, like I said, on this, because I don't want to get myself into trouble and really piss people off, but it's like you look at some of these repetitive patterns in this personality type of woman, and there's very certain borderline that steps forward, narcissistic personality disorder that steps forward. There's these very commonality shared personality disorders that are very hard to work with, and people say there are no mistakes, right? And Jerry, when you ended the show last week and you said, what's everybody reading? And I totally butchered it because I just picked it up, but The Witch's Daughter, and it's this memoir, and it is, I can just, you guys, you get it. There is nothing I could have read that's more perfect for what I needed this week. I finished it earlier today, but it is about a narcissistic borderline witch mother, and the torture she rained down on her daughters, for 50 years. And that, talk about a hero's journey, right? But it really got me tuned into thinking more about personality types, borderline.
Right.
How do you work with that? Well, shit, you don't.
Right. And those are the ones that see their way out in my practice fairly frequently or fairly soon, because they want you to do what they want.
Right.
And if you don't see that they have been wounded and that they are the ones that are damaged and hurt, and it's someone else's fault, I've started doing discovery calls and wellness evaluations before I accept patients any longer. And invariably, if it's somebody else's fault, they report all of these traumas, and it was a bad doctor and a bad nurse and then this stupid person, and I was perfectly fine until this person did this thing to me. I'm like, I'm probably not going to be able to help you because you don't trust the medical community. But reality is that's a borderline person most of the time.
Right.
There are times that it is just this vast travesty of medical disaster. And that I do get a lot of those clients into my practice now, of people having medical trauma after, especially birth trauma. We have so depersonalized the birthing mother, and they are a technical event, especially in my community. If you see the traditional OBGYNs, you're scheduled for a C-section, because it's most convenient. So many women are deciding to deliver at home or with a midwife. And most of the time that goes very well, but the times it doesn't, it's a nightmare. And that comes with its own trauma. And so again, where does that mother-in-law sit in the room? Right? You're doing it wrong. When I had my beautiful son, this is how it was. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. You're weak. No, you can't have that pain medicine. It's going to hurt the baby. It's just, I've been in those rooms. I don't deliver babies for a reason too, because I've been in those rooms.
And I think, the whole you're not doing it right is also a personality type. And it doesn't matter if you took the pain medicine or you didn't, you're not doing it right.
Right.
You can't win, which is the borderline, right, Jerry? Right. And why you shut the door.
Right.
And you try to keep some composure as you gracefully bow out.
Right.
And you never are in their presence again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's not a correct answer. They will find fault no matter what it is you do. Exactly. The sky's blue. No, it's pink. Well, no, it's orange.
Right.
Okay. Well, I can't get it right because You're in a different city from me.
And I say to Zach often, there's nobody that makes me feel more a fool than your mom. And it's not because she has this massive intelligence, like one-upmanship on me, but I absolutely feel like a shell. It's an interesting, but I think that could be kind of getting, to it there, because there's never anything right. You're never knowing how to be you because it's incorrect. You know what I mean?
Well, and the goalposts move.
Correct. The goalposts move, and the foundation is shit. So it's very difficult.
Yeah. You're getting different scantrons, and the answers don't matter because you're wrong no matter what
Yes.
you do.
Right, right,
And
right.
I had an experience like that where I had a friend who was very well meaning during a lot of my weight loss journey.
Mhm.
And he would encourage me on my diet sometimes, but it was not healthy. And so I would be like, hey, I'm really focusing on my gut health and my fiber. So I got these salad packets from Trader Joe's. They've got like kale and cabbage and stuff because I'm not feeling well. I mean, Reagan, I struggled very mightily for a long time with, and it turned out mold was a big part of that. But I really struggled to like maintain the house. I had some physical disabilities. Like taking out the trash might have been the extent of my physical ability that day. And I'm like, it's a salad kit, right? And they go, oh, well, but there's too many calories in the dressing, right? And I'm like, you know what? I'm eating kale. If you're complaining, like, I'm fine, right? Because how many people eat, and I would eat a full bag of the salad for lunch. I'd get chicken. So I do like 6 to 8 ounces of chicken breast with the salad. I had like a big bowl. Like, I'm consuming more fiber than most Americans are. I don't care how many calories are in the dressing.
Right.
I'm doing fine. I ate kale today. Did you? And it was coming from a well-meaning place because I do think that this person has a love for me. I really do. I think it's like a maladaptive anxiety disorder thing, is my personal theory behind it. Although he is not nearly as bad as some of these mother-in-laws we've described, but it can be difficult to deal with that personality where like nothing you do is right because nothing you do is going to be
Right.
right. So you just might as well do whatever the hell you want to do,
Well,
right?
exactly. When you're dealing with somebody that functions from devil's advocate seat,
Yes.
I mean, it's a really hard relationship to find yourself in, you know?
Yeah, and the problem that I found with different, but the problem I found with some difficult personalities is they're not like entirely wrong. Like there's a grain of truth in the criticism. It's just bad
Mm,
delivery, wrong timing, wrong
mhm.
audience, wrong everything. And so then that can be very hard because like you'll get in your head and go, well, there is an element of truth in that thing. But their reaction, I think, and this is where none of us are therapists and none of us can diagnose, a psychiatric disorder.
Mhm.
But that's where I start to wonder about like, anxiety disorders and things like that. Like there's a maladaptive sort of thing happening where it started from a grain of truth, but grew into something really bad, you know. But that kind of makes it even more
That
insidious.
mother-in-law in the
Right. Well,
trunk, it just
maladaptive
fed it
vampires are not
because
choosy, I mean, it's just
it's filling the
you're out
need
for
that they
blood, you're out
have
for
to
feeding.
feel vindication
And
or
I
to
think it's really good that
be
people wake
right
up to
or
that
to
reality. I mean, honestly,
they may
like,
not be right,
guard
but if they can
yourself.
make you feel
All
wrong,
you can do with a borderline or a vampire
that fed
is have
their
boundaries.
need
There's no
because they're
vindication,
not going
there's
to
no
get positive
talking in circles
reinforcement
about it,
because
there's
none
no
of their
making your point.
behaviors
I mean, that is the
deserve
issue,
it.
you
And
know.
so as long as
So
they can
learn
bring everyone
to
else
boundary
down to
yourself,
their
protect
level or
yourself.
lower, then they're better than they are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's pretty funny. Yeah.
I I love that. I love the vampire imagery there. Have either of you watched the show What We Do in the Shadows? I love that show.
It's good.
And Reagan, and for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's a show about vampires, but it's filmed in such a way like it's a reality TV
Yeah.
show. So it's
Yeah.
kind
I
of a
mean,
meta, a
it's legit.
comedy
And,
thing. But the energy
yeah,
vampire
I
in
was
it,
going to kind of
I
go off
think,
of
is
that
just
topic and just say,
so there's vampires that
you
suck blood
know,
and vampires
in
that suck
thinking
energy,
about
and the energy
myself and
vampires in
getting
the
through like
show
these years
are
of
they're always doing
like
something like
illness and like
obnoxious,
moving
right? They're
and
they're going
coming
on
back
about
into
some
this
topic, or
career
they're doing something
mindset,
really annoying in an
um,
office, and
I've really
the show's
struggled.
a hoot. I really
And this is
recommend it. I
maybe
think
All
something
right.
where the
it's a
mother-in-law
hilarious
archetype is
show.
stepped
But the
forward in
energy
this
vampire
self-doubt of
imagery,
like,
I think is
who
like
am I
really
to know
spot on. I
what's
think it's a really
best
effective
for
way
other
to
people?
frame it.
I think that is a script that I need to flip. But that's been an interesting thing that I think more than anything with what I happen to study and who I happen to get as a mother-in-law, those two things have played together in where's my confidence, you know, um, in this directly indirect way of just words are powerful. Holding space for people is a lot, and you need to make sure you're doing it correctly because I just would hate to ever be a person that took somebody's harm and furthered it, but um, yes. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Well, then, what a good spot, because I do think we need to wrap up in the next few minutes. But what a good spot. Last week we ended talking about sort of the
Hmm.
salve for this is to have communication with the people around you, right? And I think you kind of hit on the salve for these toxic personalities is self confidence, right? Finding your foundation might be the treatment plan for dealing with this. So that's kind of fun. We're always ending on like some sort of like actionable step there. I like that. I like what we're
Yeah.
doing. We didn't plan that at all. But I like where
Hmm.
we're going with it. But like I think that's really like maybe that is the solution. Like in the same way previously we were talking about how do we deal with these people when we have to? And I think the solution was you communicate with your tribe around them and find alignment and synergy and foundation and camaraderie in them. And I think with these people, with the people who are really attacking you directly, you have to find your footing. You have to find your foundation because they're
Yeah.
going to knock you off. And, but any final thoughts? I don't need to say the last word. Autumn, that was great. Reagan, Autumn, any final thoughts on this? I think it's really great.
I think it's been very thought provoking. I feel like there's going to be one of those things where people may not comment. If they do, it's going to be more of the whoa moment because I feel like it's a great
Yeah.
food for thought
Hmm.
conversation because you've left it honestly, your last bit about what do I have to do to make sure I'm not reflecting any of my
Right.
stuff on other people and what right do I have to
Yeah.
basically
Yes.
have an opinion on how they live their life. I mean, it's not that loose, but
Yeah. Enough is enough.
it's a beautiful state
Yeah, I
because
mean,
again,
I
it goes
think
back to having that
this,
supreme
as
or
this
sovereign
unfolds, this thing
control
we're
of
doing,
you.
I really do think
And the only thing you have control
it's
over
such an
is you.
organic process. I
And
mean, that's what I see in myself anyway.
I
Because
love the
I
idea
might
of
sit
kind
here
of
with
closing the
like
door on the
schooling
chaos
I've
of never
done,
getting to
and it
give
might help
a right
bring in
answer
some
to those folks who
conversation
you're
and
never
some
enough.
verbiage
You're
and
never going to be
whatever.
right.
But really,
And just
it's
kind of
this
like,
very
thank you,
organic,
bye.
real situational
I love
life
you.
process.
Take care.
And
Right. And kind of like shutting the
I
door and
really
just like
appreciate that,
smile.
like the realness of it.
Yeah.
and kind of going down the rabbit hole first and with, you know, trying to figure it out. Yeah. Boundaries, people, right? Boundaries. Like you're worth it. You're worth it. Yeah. I finished today. It's a book by Orenda Fink called The Witch's Daughter, and it's about, you know, her journey with a borderline, um, severely abusive mom. And I've been dabbling in reading. I'm usually reading about 3 to 5 books at once, but Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance,
Boundaries.
I've been reading again. Um,
You're right.
yeah,
So
yeah.
wrapping up, Autumn, you talked a little bit about what you're reading lately.
It's called
Do you want to?
Zen and the
What was
Art of
that book called
Motorcycle
again?
Maintenance, and it's a tale of this man's journey on his motorcycle and how he relates working on his motorcycle and being on it to life, both the physical aspects of life and the mental and the spiritual, and like it's like this pilgrimage. Yes, definitely. It's good.
I love that. The art of motorcycle maintenance, is that kind of pithy or is that literal? I thought you're going to have to brief us on that next time. I want to hear more. Awesome. And Reagan, what are you reading lately?
100 is the New 30 by Jeffrey Gladden. He's a cardiac, an interventional cardiologist by training and life, but he's now retired and he's created a longevity clinic, and that's my next step. I have been also reading Sacred Contracts by Caroline Meese, and Untethered Souls is still on the play deck and audiobook, and Archetypes by Caroline Meese as
I
well.
love it.
And yeah, it's the 3 to 5
I
books
was
at a
just
time.
there.
Can't keep
Yeah.
going. And then
Yeah.
for fun, my novel that I'm reading is called The Highland Witch. It's a retold story about a Protestant minister investigating. Basically, this is, you know, King William, King James back in the Scotland era, where, you know, bring back Bonnie Prince Charles or whatever. The Jacobite uprising. This is actually a real history, kind of very weird, right? And so he was interviewing this woman who's been accused of witchcraft, who is actually like, I think maybe some people might call her a green witch. She's an herbalist. She's a healer. She's somebody I identify with in more ways than I can even imagine. And it's actually the format in which I'm going to write my memoirs. This was my first life.
Love that.
That was the end of my second life. So talking about all of the little deaths we all experience as we evolve into the you are at the moment, those all involve multiple little deaths of life. I'm not the 16-year-old I was. I'm not the 35-year-old I was. I'm not the 6-year-old I was. They all formed me, but that's not my story anymore. Yeah.
I love that imagery. I do. Yeah, we're all readers. I'm reading several. I actually might give. I'll give a shout out to Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers by Sapolsky. Really, any Sapolsky book is going to be phenomenal. I think everything he's written is just out of this park. He wrote that one. He wrote a really great one on human behavior. A really good one on free choice and whether or not we have it. In fact, Reagan, earlier you mentioned that you think choice is part of what makes some people vile versus not, what some people healed versus not. And, it got me thinking about that actually because, you know, I'm not certain that we do have choice. I'm not certain that that exists in the world. versus just an incredibly complicated, trillions upon trillions to the power of a trillion things going on in the physical world. And that book was a really big part of me kind of stepping back and going, huh, I actually don't know the answer to this anymore. I used to think I did, but now I kind of don't. So anything by Sapolsky is going to be wonderful. But on my fun books, I am rereading This Is How You Lose the Time War, which is a kind of fanciful, very poetic book about two individuals who exist in sort of a timey-wimey world where one's in a faction trying to control history, and so they're sending them back, and sort of they start taunting each other on their missions, and then eventually sort of fall in love. And it's a book that isn't really sci-fi because the mechanics of this world don't matter. The politics of the war don't matter. It's just every chapter is a letter from one to the other, and there's these flowery,
Nice.
progressively more loving notes back and forth to each other. So it's like it's sci-fi in the background and really a foreground of this really fascinating, it's one of those things where like they're describing a field and it takes several pages kind of books, but it's really just the scents and the colors and the plants, and it's one of those kind of real tactile. I'm like doing my fingers. It's a real tactile kind of book, right?
See you guys later.
A lot of descriptions. That's kind of my fun book.
Awesome.
All right, my friends. What an excellent discussion tonight. I'm going to go ahead and end the episode. Thank you for everything. I wish I was taking enough notes to like summarize it here, but honestly, it would take another 20 minutes. We covered so much. It really, really fascinating. All right, until next time.
Until next time, have a great day. Great night.